Great. Well, it's brilliant to have you all with us this evening to celebrate Let's End Poverty. Since Let's End Poverty launched in October 2023, we've journeyed together as a coalition of individuals, churches, charities, grassroots groups, trade unions, and many more people behind that big vision of a future where poverty can't keep anyone down. With our sights set on the general election that took place last year, we wanted to collaborate in this important moment to make poverty a priority for our political leaders. We've taken part in a whole range of activities and projects, whether that was the Dreams and Realities exhibition to Neighbourhood Voices, engaging our candidates around the general election, taking the Dear Prime Minister letters to Parliament, hosting events, putting up banners, Artists for Change, and much more. This really rich tapestry of action and creativity over quite a short time has really demonstrated the powerful voices of our communities as we stand up for a future where poverty can't keep anyone down.
Um, you'll see that Hannah and I are both hosting and facilitating. So there might be, if there's little technical glitches, that's because we're trying to do multiple tasking, which obviously Hannah's much better at, as because men are rubbish at multitasking. Anyway, we have collaborated and taken action together. We've uncovered lots of learning, ideas, and energy around what it means to build a powerful and impactful movement of people committed to ending poverty in the UK. And the journey we've shared together has given us some new tools and connections that will help us in the path ahead. It's also helped us to understand what needs to change and be challenged to make sure that we genuinely are a movement where people who are struggling on the front line of poverty personally are centred and given voice and agency within the movement. We know that as Let's End Poverty in its current form comes to an end, that this is learning that we will all take with us and hopefully ensure that the action we all take in our own spaces to end poverty will be more impactful as a result.
So we really wanted to use this opportunity this evening to share stories from the movement, to celebrate things that have been achieved and to explore some of those things that we've learned. So over the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to hear from a range of people who've been involved with the movement on video and who are with us here this evening, to hear about some of the projects that Let's End Poverty has supported, to think about those tools and connections that have helped to think about how we are equipped for the journey ahead to tackle poverty in the UK. As we go out and into different spaces from Let's End Poverty, we'll think about how we can take those tools and learnings with us. And we'll hear from movement builders and leaders about what they would like to celebrate about Let's End Poverty and what they've learned and how they see the journey ahead.
But we're now going to kick off the evening with 3 video messages from movement builders sharing what they want to celebrate about Let's End Poverty.
Hi, I work for Christians Against Poverty as Policy and Public Affairs Manager, and CAP have been involved with Let's End Poverty from the start, and it has been wonderful to see the collaborations and connections that have taken place throughout these 18 months that Let's End Poverty has been going on. And so I'd just like to celebrate every single person that's been involved in, whether that's one event or the full time it's been running. Celebrate you and the passion and commitment that you've come at all of this. And hopefully this won't be the end of us all working tirelessly to try and bring an end to UK poverty.
Hi, I'm Tyra, and what I'd like to celebrate about Let's End Poverty is the courage it's taken for people to share their experiences, which are often raw, real, and often quite painful at times. It's brought together people who felt unheard for too long and created a space where actually we're not just listened to, we're valued and actually part of driving the change forward. I've met the most incredible people through this campaign and people that are doing such great work across the UK, which has just been absolutely phenomenal. people actually turning hardship and the struggles they faced into strength, and actually what can be such an isolating time for people that are experiencing hardship, actually turning that into solidarity. That's what I'm celebrating, really, and the fact that I've had so many opportunities being able to share and really champion co-production, and actually showing that by working alongside people with lived experience and professionals that are working around poverty and trying to end poverty, that actually real change can happen when we work together.
Today I want to celebrate how Let's End Poverty went from being something that was dreamed up by a few of us in a bunker in Westminster to a nationwide movement which brought together many voices, many groups, many organisations and many communities to say together in different ways, but loud and clear, that poverty is wrong, that poverty harms our society, and that poverty can and should be overcome.
Hi everyone, my name's Jack Robinson from Unison. Really sorry I can't be with you all this evening. Just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of you for all the work that's been done with Let's End Poverty. It's been really a great experience for us to learn so much about other partner organisations and to work in really different ways with everybody, and to sort of contribute towards something that feels much bigger than ourselves, and reach across so many different people and communities. Personally, I've loved knowing that there are so many people who are so committed to tackling poverty in the UK. Makes you definitely feel like you're a bit less alone in what can quite an often a really overwhelming fight. So yeah, all the best from Unison. Looking forward to seeing how we can make things continue.
And a bonus one there that was sent in at the last minute, so brilliant to hear from all of those guys. We wanted to share throughout the evening some snippets of the kind of experiences people have had of Let's End Poverty across the last 18 months through the particular projects that we've been involved with. And one of them is the Neighbourhood Voices project. So in the build-up to the election, we ran Neighbourhood Voices, recognising that in key moments for our national conversation like elections, there are some communities whose voices aren't heard as loudly as others. And Neighbourhood Voices was all about listening to and amplifying the experiences, hopes and aspirations of the communities across the UK who often aren't listened to, and feeding those into our discussion about what change we want to see happen for our neighbourhoods and how our political leaders can be part of bringing that about. So we're going to hear from Nato, who was from Stoke YMCA, who took part in a Neighbourhood Voices conversation last year, a bit about that experience for them.
My name is Nato Onwuzurumba, and we're right here at YMCA North Staffordshire in Stoke-on-Trent. I work here as chaplain, and it's been such a privilege to host the Neighbourhood Voices conversation with Gareth, and we've had the opportunity to just sit together and share our hopes and our aspirations for our area, and just to remind ourselves that we want to see change, and that poverty must not define us, and that together we can tell a different story of hope, really.
And there are still lots of stories about those Neighbourhood Voices conversations on the Let's End Poverty website, so that's really just a snippet of what they were able to do. Neil, over to you for our next part.
Thanks, Hannah. Back to me. We're now going to start to think about what some of the lessons are that we've learned from Let's End Poverty. And I'm going to try and find Gareth McNabb, who's been part of the enabling group. I'm going to bring you into the space. Evening, Gareth. I also just want to check, we were hoping for a couple of the other members, Glory and Ash, to join this, but I think they've not been able to join the call.
I can't find them, but I'll bring them in if I do.
Okay. So Gareth, over to you. What have you learned from Let's End Poverty?
I have learned that on the hardest day, when you feel like it's never going to go away, you're not alone. Whether you're an individual involved in a struggle because poverty is breaking into your life, your home, your family, or whether you're an individual whose personal life isn't touched by poverty, but whose professional life is poured out to try and address it and end it, you're not alone. Yes, and that's been especially important on the days where the work has felt daunting, where the lack of listening by leaders has been depressing, and where I suppose sometimes where promises we might have made to one another have been hard to keep, because with the best will in the world, bringing together coalitions and alliances relies on an awful lot of goodwill. And we've built lots and lots of that along the way, which has been really wonderful.
What, if anything, would you say is a highlight of Let's End Poverty for you?
I think I've got a personal one. I've got a professional one. I was Director of External Affairs at Christians Against Poverty for 4 years or so. I left in October of last year. So the last few months of Let's End Poverty, I've been continued to be involved in the enabling group as an individual who's passionate about this stuff. But professionally, I was involved in leading Christians Against Poverty's general election campaign around poverty. And as is classic for organizations of that type and size, we wanted to get everybody writing emails to candidates. And being part of the enabling group with Let's End Poverty meant that there was an opportunity to serve, to use some of the tools that a larger size charity like Christians Against Poverty have available, and then make that available to many, many others. We were able to get a letter writing campaign going earlier than many other charities with the software that we created. Our Right to Candidate campaign started before the short campaign. It started at the long campaign, when not every candidate had been named. I think that was really powerful. We also made our mapping software available to Let's End Poverty, so that you could see very visually in what constituencies are candidates being engaged with questions around poverty, which is really wonderful. But within that, I think the big thing I learned professionally was that Gordon was right. I don't know about you lot. I was in a field just up the road in Kettering, hearing Gordon give the speech that kind of launched Let's End Poverty. And he was quite clear that the policy answers to poverty are well known. There's very little innovation in the policies needed to end poverty. What there is a total lack of is the political ambition. And I think that's a massive misreading of the public will. And so rather than make these right to candidate emails policy heavy, or even client story heavy of CAP stats, I was in a room with you, Neil, with you, Hannah, and with some others when I just got the go ahead to go and get these right to candidate emails going. And we started wondering, what if instead of telling them the policies that we want them to adopt, what if we asked every candidate in the UK election, what's your personal motivation to end poverty? And then what if we asked them about their personal connection with people with lived experience of poverty? And then what if we asked them, what have you already done about it in your life? What if we ask questions and start conversations instead of push policies? And I mean, I was blown away. Neil, you and I have differed in opinion before in terms of the value of policy and public affairs and grassroots movement. And the group here can try and work out who's been on what side. But in meeting in that way, actually, I'm convinced that the 6,500 conversations we started with those emails across 85% of the constituencies in the UK were actual, genuine, move the conversation on around ending poverty, rather than shouting into the void about why poverty must end. The emails that came through my inbox over the time, people were sharing their candidates' responses. It was wonderful and human, instead of just oppositional and Punch and Judy politics. I think what was really helpful was making sure that the questions that I had on my mind to ask, actually, before I hit send on any of those, I sat down with a group of former clients of Christians Against Poverty to say, hey, if we were sending these in your name, if we were sharing any part of your story and insight, if you got to say, ask one question to the candidates for Westminster, what would you be asking? And it was really humbling to hear that the questions phrased the way that we as an enabling group had begun to tailor them resonated so deeply with people whose engagement in the struggle is far more personal than my own. So that's my professional one. My personal one, I think it slightly predates Let's End Poverty. I think we just about had a brand and a banner, but it was in a similar vein. My job involved engaging with party conference season every year, very policy heavy, very politician heavy, lots of sandwiches, lots of warm white wine. I love it. But in the October before the general election, I decided that Christians Against Poverty would not be hosting a policy panel, as had been our style. We decided to partner with the Joint Public Issues team to pray poverty onto the agenda. And so we hired a space just like we normally do. We invited people along just like we normally do. And it was fantastic to be able to sit down in both, I think it was Liverpool and Birmingham, and able to sit with politicians, journalists, members of the movement, and talk about why poverty does need to be ended, to agree altogether that it's very much a moral issue, not really even a political one anymore. And then to stand outside both party conferences, holding the banners and praying silently and loudly in solidarity with people in the struggle against poverty, very visibly. I think the highlight for me was probably being invited by the police to come closer to the entry to the party conference so that more of the politicians could see us and have to get past us. We'd wondered whether being provided with an escort might be controversial or inflammatory, but actually when the police were invited us to make ourselves more prominent, I thought, well, all right then, we will.
Thanks, Gareth. I've got an apology to make this evening that we haven't provided sandwiches and warm wine. That was clearly one of the lessons we haven't learned. You will have picked up that Gareth's quite a passionate guy, and it's been a great pleasure working with Gareth. You can have to work out for yourselves which one's the policy wonk and which one's the passionate campaigner. And I think I'm confused now. I'm confused. Who's who?
Having worked for one cap and another cap, I think we've kind of almost merged as people and as organisations. It's been great working with you, Neil.
So thanks, Gareth. It's been a pleasure. I mean, lots of people have been part of this amazing campaign, and it's been a pleasure working with so many people. And Gareth's certainly on that list. I'm hoping we'll continue that into the future. So we have to move on, and the next thing we're going to do is hear a thank you message from Baroness Lister. Ruth Lister is a member of the House of Lords. She's been a lifelong champion for Action to End Poverty in her many roles in charities and in campaigning and political life. And some of us met with her when she came along to the Dear Prime Minister event in Parliament. And we're now going to hear a short message from her about Let's End Poverty.
I'm particularly grateful to you for the way that you've involved people with experience of poverty in campaigning on the issue. I think this is so important. It's important for policymakers, parliamentarians such as myself, to hear directly from people who know what it's like to live in poverty and their ideas about what should be done about it. But I think it's also important for you, for those of you who've experienced poverty yourselves, because it's a recognition of the value of your experience and the expertise that comes from that. So I'm very grateful, because I think the more we have of this kind of campaigning, the better. I realise your project's coming to an end. I do hope that those of you, your involvement in maybe coming to an end in the project, but that it won't be an end to your involvement in campaigning against poverty. We need people like you more than ever and particularly at present when we're awaiting the child poverty strategy, the more that you can be putting pressure on, particularly on the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, to prioritise tackling poverty, and particularly tackling child poverty, the greater the chance that we will see a strategy that will make a difference.
Thank you to Ruth for recording that video and for being an agent for change around this in her role in Parliament. Through Let's End Poverty, we've worked to build relationships with several political leaders like Baroness Lister, but across the House as well. And one particular leader we've met a few times over the last 2 years is Baroness Maeve Sherlock. So Baroness Sherlock was the Shadow Faiths Minister for the Labour Party, and after the election was chosen to be the Minister in the Department for Work and Pensions. So a pretty important voice on poverty. And I want to invite Steve and Miles to join me here. Hopefully, Neil, you can bring them up onto the screen for us. I think I've seen both of you, so hopefully I can find you. So Steve and Miles have both been part of working with us to build the relationship with Baroness Sherlock, and they're just going to come and share some of those reflections with us. There we go. There, I can see you now, Steve.
I had Miles, lost him.
Oh, it's all right. I think I found him. There we go. I can see now, Miles. Let me come on into, and then hopefully you can see us all together. Fab. So, Steve and Miles, thank you so much for being here to share a little bit of thought on this. Steve, let's start with you if that's all right. You met Baroness Sherlock back in February 2020. I think I've put 24. Yeah, 2024 on this. So it was last year.
Just over a year ago, yeah.
When she was Shadow Faiths Minister. And then again in March of this year when she's been Minister at the DWP. Why do you think it's important to build those long-term relationships with leaders like Baroness Sherlock?
I think back in last year she was Shadow DWP Minister as well as Shadow Faith Minister. For me, it actually felt like a bit of imposter syndrome being there last year, because I was there with kind of all these amazing leaders of the different organisations, and I was the one with lived experience. But following on from what Baroness Lister's just said, it makes it kind of almost amusing that I've kind of saw it in that way. But it was great to get a conversation with her and actually hear from somebody in the heart of government that we are being heard and we have got an important cause, and somebody with kind of a bit of political clout was actually wanting to see poverty being eradicated. It's obviously been a very difficult year for them since then, but I actually met her again in or just before the election last year, because she was at another event talking about faith and politics, and she remembered me, and that was quite powerful. So when we kind of saw her again a few months ago, that was brilliant because she already knew kind of a bit about me. And I think it is that building relationships, and it doesn't just happen instantly. By seeing somebody over a period of time, they get to learn more and more about you, and you just get to have a better understanding of what somebody's approach is like and how they feel about it. And in the last meeting we had, there were a good kind of mix of people with the lived experience and some of you guys who were kind of leading the different groups, but she'd brought in some people from the child poverty team, and so that showed that she felt that we were important enough to try and bring in others to hear from us. I think that's been quite exciting in a way. Also very frustrating because in that she seemed like she really got what we were saying, and then a couple of weeks later the announcement was made about PIP and things like that, which those of us with disabilities will probably feel unless we can change things, but because there is a beginning of a relationship by seeing her a few times, hopefully even without the official kind of Let's End Poverty banner there, hopefully we can continue to build on that.
Thank you, Steve. Miles, you came with us when we met with Baroness Sherlock at the DWP this year. And one of the things that really struck me from what you shared in that meeting was you talked with her and her team about recognizing that redesigning systems so that they work for users, but also staff. Why do you think it's important to take a collaborative approach when we think about change making, especially when there are so many big issues that we can get annoyed about? Why is it important to go in with that much more relational approach?
Yeah, I'm just going to follow on a little bit from what Steve said there. I mean, it was a great opportunity to go in. Obviously, we kind of went into the lion's den, if you want to call it, at Caxton House and sort of going in and having that opportunity. But I think what was interesting for me is that in that meeting, she was there. We had somebody senior from the DWP, we had the policymakers. And I think because we were just sharing some personal stuff, I truly sort of believe, and I think I said this at the time, I don't think anyone ever tries to create a system that is difficult to work alongside, but people make it difficult, if you like. So sometimes, and this is just stuff that I do in another sphere, but by being able to actually have a look at the system together and saying, you are writing it on this basis, is that what you think it's meant to deliver? And then being able to receive the other side of it. And being able to collaboratively prepare and look at the changes and think, is what you plan to implement by putting this in place, this is what the reality of that is. So rather than, and is that what you planned? And more often than not, people go, oh no, that's not what we actually meant to write, but the way it's been written results in that happening. So I think the bit I was trying to illustrate is that we as people who receive the service actually sometimes just need to understand why things happen. So it's really for me about sort of saying, look, if you as the member of staff, we appreciate you've got handcuffs yourself because you're also having to follow protocols, you're having to follow procedures, but we don't know what necessarily those barriers are. So if we can actually understand both perspectives and actually write these together, then hopefully it's a bit more of a seamless sort of journey through that particular system, that particular process, because I don't want to come and engage with the service and find problems. You as a member of staff don't want to have to listen to people moaning and sort of getting frustrated and angry as well. And, you know, if you can come in and have a more sort of, you know, genuine discussion about someone's situation and have a little bit of leeway around that process, then actually it's a win-win both sides. So, you know, nobody intentionally wants to create problems, but the systems themselves actually facilitate the problem. So working together on them actually breaks down some of those, it releases some of those handcuffs. Can't release all of them, but if we can release or take the key to the handcuffs, unlock it for a bit and say, what could the system look like? And then the staff or the person accessing can say, if only it looked like this, if it looked like that, and then actually you agree that, then you can put the handcuff back on, put the key back in. But actually there's some ideas for the policymakers, for the people writing them, to then be able to go away and say, this could actually work. And we bring that kind of human interaction in and saying, you know, we've got some solutions for you. Would you just listen to them? We'll listen to your hassles. And then together, we can actually make this a little bit more seamless, a little bit less frustrating, and ultimately the member of staff feels like they're doing their real job that they want to deliver, and the person receiving it feels like they're actually being listened to and hopefully getting through that system a little bit quicker, a little bit gentler. So I don't know if I've waffled on a bit there, but it was a really, really good, but I will say to Steve, I had the same feeling. I left that meeting thinking, do you know what? I think we've really made some progress there. And then when obviously the announcements and stuff came out, it was like a little bit of frustration of, oh God, I thought we'd sort of got somewhere. And I know it's not necessarily the people in that room that made the decisions with the announcement, but it was a tad frustrating thinking, oh God, you know, if only they'd sort of sat and done a bit more work with this. But that's the opportunity that we've got moving forward, is to not lose that connection and go back and say, do you know what? That's really awful, but we can work with you. Let's sit and see how we can then continue to do that. That's my hope.
I like that we've got finishing with some hope there, Miles. Thank you. And I will share that, you know, out of what Miles and Steve and the others in the meeting shared, I met one of the civil servants who was at the meeting at an event a few weeks later, and she kind of ran to me across the room and said, I've been thinking about that meeting, and I'd really like to invite you to feed in some of the stories and the examples that were shared into the child poverty strategy. And so actually, I think sometimes we don't always know the ripple effects of even just having those conversations. So I'm really grateful for the generous way that you've both approached those spaces and how open and collaborative and curious you've been in those spaces to really think about how we can create change. So thank you both so much for the part you've played in that. We're going to hear
for allowing us to have that space.
It's been brilliant. Thank you both so much. We're going to hear a little bit more from some other movement builders now, from Helen, Jenny, Diana and Talia, who are going to share something of the impact of Let's End Poverty where they are.
Here in the South West Peninsula Methodist District, we've really enjoyed engaging with Let's End Poverty. It's helped raise the profile of some of those tricky issues. It's helped us collaborate with people from across the UK, and it's really helped us to hone some of the ideas and things to move us forward as a district.
I think what I'm really grateful for and most appreciative of is being able to be a part of this community. It has been a privilege and a joy to meet so many people and to learn from them, and to feel like even when what is just our normal everyday life, that when we share that, we're treated with respect and dignity and feel heard. And so that felt like such an enormous privilege to be a part of this project.
I'm also really grateful that ATD Fourth World was invited to take part in so many aspects of Let's End Poverty. The Dear Prime Minister campaign, the Neighborhood Voices videos, an exhibition that took place in Camden's neighborhood of London. And one of the things I think deserves lots of congratulations is really striking to me that Let's End Poverty was bringing together many, many people, diverse people, people in Westminster, people with authority, but also really caring for each individual. I felt like the interactions with Let's End Poverty were very attentive to who are the people who are here, how are we not overloading individuals who are carrying a lot in their daily life, how are we, really thanking people for their involvement. I just think it's kind of rare to see a national campaign that's run with that attention to local detail. So congratulations to Let's End Poverty.
Sadly, I could only attend my favourite Let's End Poverty moment on Zoom. I am a Methodist deacon, and at our annual convocation in 2024, we spent time exploring the issues of living with poverty. Using a method known as craftivism, a methodology of protest and activism using craft, an incredible Let's End Poverty banner was made. Each deacon was tasked with making a square, signalling what poverty meant in their context. The creativity was amazing, But it was perhaps the conversations that were the most revealing, exposing the vast range of lived experience of poverty faced by those we work alongside. Squares covered rural and urban poverty, poverty experienced in families, but also amongst the elderly, lack of finance, but also an inability to access support and life-enhancing facilities like parks, libraries and medical facilities. And that amazing banner has travelled across the country, and the conversations about poverty continue. As Let's End Poverty's current work comes to an end, let's continue those conversations. Let's keep walking alongside those experiencing poverty, and let's continue to fight for justice and equity.
It's been great to hear those ripple effects as they've gone to different places. Another message of thanks and encouragement we want to share with you this evening is from someone who's already been alluded to when Gareth and Neil were speaking earlier on, which is former Prime Minister Gordon Brown. So some of you might know that Gordon has been a champion and supporter of this work from the very start. In August 2023, just a few months before we formally launched Let's End Poverty, he came along to Greenbelt Festival to speak and to kind of soft launch Let's End Poverty. And it was a very special moment with thousands of people watching. He has been committed to championing this work in the spaces that he's in and in the influence that he has. And he's sent a message of thanks to Let's End Poverty, which I want to read to you now. Just put this up on the screen so you can see a picture of Gordon taken at Greenbelt Festival as he launched Let's End Poverty. And his message says, I want to thank you all for all you have done to raise awareness of the scale of poverty in our country, and to ensure that the lived experience of poverty is at the forefront of the campaign to reduce poverty levels. Our shared concern is for the 4.5 million children now in poverty, and making sure that voices are heard that can ensure a reduction in these record levels. Your contribution has been and will always be vital to achieve a fairer Britain and to make possible dignified lives for all those affected by poverty today. So we have expressed our thanks and gratitude to Gordon as he's championed that work and in all that he continues to do. So it's really great to have that from him. I'm going to bring Neil back onto the screen now to move us into some forward thinking. And Neil's going to bring in some of our other movement builders to have that conversation too.
Thanks, Hannah. So we're now, moving on to a conversation about where we see the movement End Poverty in 5 years' time. We do want to think forward and not just celebrate and look backwards tonight. The challenge of ending poverty is clearly one which is with us and will continue to be with us. So I'm hoping we can be joined by Val and Claire, who have been great champions for Let's End Poverty, coming from different spaces in different parts of the country. So welcome Val, welcome Claire.
Thank you.
I don't know which one. Val, I'll go to you first. What do you think looking ahead? What would you hope the movement to end poverty looks like in 5 years' time?
I would hope that the ripples that we've talked about have actually become waves of change. That we've planted the seeds for something, and I think and our approach is filled with care and compassion and love. Because the issue is, as we know, it's not that there aren't the resources, it's just the way the resources are distributed. And then behind that is the thinking behind that, the fears that drive these processes. So, and you know, I'm a great believer that the more we fear something, the more likely we are to create it. So I think government fear of a ever-growing welfare bill has led to policies and systems which are going to make that more likely to happen, in terms of it puts people under an even blacker cloud You know, if we want people to be productive, we've got to create environments that enable people to be productive, not living in with constant fear and pressure, and almost like living in the shadows. You know, it's like a black cloud beyond which you can't see anything. And you're lucky if you've experienced a life without it, or you know it's possible. But for so many people, it's never been in their experience. So there's no hope of it being any different. And it just looks like a downward spiral. So I would hope that we've learned so much more by then. And I think one of the issues that we saw with COVID was just how little we understood human behaviour when it came to policy making. And currently we're actually reaping the you know, I wouldn't say it's not the rewards of it, but we're sort of seeing that in terms of what's happened post then. So, and I think that there's so much going on underneath the surface. So it's just fertilizing the soil and having hope and faith. And, you know, I love what Gareth was saying about praying for it. This is not intellectually, if we could solve this, we would have done it. It takes more than that. It takes accessing so much more of what it is to be who we are and human, and that. So it's a blending of the, you know, mind, body, and soul, and we can do it because, as I say, it's actually quite simple. But the analogy I always use, you know, losing weight is simple. Just don't put the food in our mouths and exercise. But the layers that go on behind that are the things that cause the problem. So we need to go deeper on that. And I believe absolutely in 5 years' time, we will be so far ahead. We can't possibly even imagine what it could be like. But I feel that we're on the right track with what Let's End Poverty has done, and you know, as was being said, the care, as Diana was saying, the care and the love that's shown through that's what will take us forward.
Thanks, Val. That's incredibly positive. Claire, over to you.
Hi. I've been thinking quite a lot about this. I think one of the things we need to work on, and I'd like to see in the next 5 years, is to end the stigma around poverty and to change the narrative. And I think that's starting to happen. We're seeing that already with people with lived experience being in the room making decisions. And I think that needs to become commonplace. And I also think that children who are living in generational poverty, they need to be given hope, and they need to be given a feeling that that's the end of it. They're the last generation in their family that's going to be living in poverty, and give them the strength and the support that they need to end that. And I think a lot of the work that we need to do should focus around children, because they're sort of the next generation of adults that are coming up. And yeah, sorry, my brain's a little bit skinny today, but yeah, for me it's changing the narrative, because I think there's still a lot of stigma out there around poverty, and a lot of the reason that people aren't willing to make decisions that make people, you know, for voting and things like that, is people are still blaming the people that live in poverty. And I think that we need to get rid of that. And I think there is hope there. I think it is encouraging, and I think things are changing. And I think we need to work together. All of the people that I met in April, there was lots of people from lots of places. And I think if we can continue working together and building a stronger movement, and joining other poverty movements, and just keep building and keep growing, I think we're really onto something.
Thanks, Claire. I might have said by way of introduction, Val kind of comes with the support of Trussell. Claire's very much involved in Poverty Truth Network. But what for me has been part of the joy and the kind of genius, if you like, of Let's End Poverty is the collaboration that we might have come through different routes, but once we've got in the room together, actually we've found how much we've got in common. And it's been a privilege and a joy to get to know Val and Claire through Dear Prime Minister and the consultation we had last month about what to do next. And it feels like a conversation started. I know I'm not answering the question, but we've felt like we've started a conversation within the anti-poverty movement, in which people with lived experience are absolutely part of that conversation. And if that can go anywhere in the next 5 years, then we're onto something. That's the most powerful thing for me. about how we can make challenge the narrative and bring hope. Spending time with hopeful people just lifts the spirits. So thanks to both of you. And I'm going to hand on now to Hannah.
Thank you both. Yeah, that's certainly been one of my joys, is spending time with brilliant people and realizing through that change is possible. So thank you. We're squeezing a lot into this evening because I feel like we've got an overflow of brilliant things to share with you. So we're going to hear now another message of thanks and encouragement, which is from Cat Smith MP. You might remember Cat if you've been following Let's End Poverty from when she asked a question about our campaign at Prime Minister's Questions in Parliament earlier this year. So Cat has recorded us a message for this evening. I'm going to show you that now.
Thank you so much for your involvement and encouragement of the campaign to Let's End Poverty. It was an absolute privilege to be able to host the event in the House of Commons and then follow up with a question to the Prime Minister the following day at Prime Minister's Questions. I know that the campaign isn't over. I know that, until poverty is over, it will never be over. And I want to reaffirm my commitment to that as an aim. And I know that you probably share that view. It's probably a good opportunity now to say thank you to everyone who has been involved in supporting the campaign and to wish everyone all the very best.
One of the great joys of working on Let's End Poverty over the last few years has really been creating spaces, like Neil said, of inviting people in through different routes, and that might have been through Parliament and their particular roles in positions of power, or it might have been through people's roles in their local communities to create genuinely mutual spaces. And I think particularly reflected back for us when we met Kat in Parliament was her genuine listening, but also how she was moved to act and to change her PMQ the next day and to ask about the campaign. So really recognising we have allies in all sorts of places if we can kind of commit to building those relationships. As we keep moving forward, we're going to talk for a little bit now about all of the creative work that has happened through Let's End Poverty. Neil, I'm going to bring you in to introduce some of that to us.
Thanks, Hannah. So one of the other joys for me about the whole Let's End Poverty movement has been how we've managed to use creativity as a tool. And one of those has been, in fact, he's just behind me there, one of the paintings from the Dreams and Realities exhibition, which we were able to tour around the country, was so impactful. We took it, I think, to 12 different venues, and it created so many conversations, but really fundamentally about the lives of people on the front line of poverty and their realities, but also their dreams. And that was what struck me when Stephen, the artist, and Yo from Sheffield first came, said, we want to do this little exhibition in Sheffield. And I said, oh, no, it's not a little exhibition. This is something so good that everybody across the country needs to see it. So we're going to have a little video, I think, from to introduce what that Dreams and Realities exhibition was all about.
Dreams and Realities began as an idea in Sheffield in 2023. It has grown into an amazing, uplifting art and storytelling project. Stephen Martin painted portraits of 10 people, including himself, all of whom live in poverty. Each painting includes something that represents the person's current situation and something representing the hopes and dreams that they would pursue if they were freed from poverty's grip. The project has been incredible. The paintings and the texts alongside have been seen in towns and cities around the country and have generated some wonderful responses. The original paintings have all now been returned to the participants at a special celebration event at Sheffield Cathedral, but the project is still having an impact. Copies of the paintings are being used to spark discussions and reflections at lots of churches and community groups, and 2 similar spin-off projects have also been launched. so the dreams, realities and voices of people in poverty will continue to be amplified across the UK.
All humans have dreams, and as humans together we should enable each other's dreams, and governments should enable the health and the dreams of the people that they govern.
So thanks in particular to Yo, who was instrumental in the idea, and Stephen, the artist. The third person we really want to thank tonight is Pete, who worked for and on the Let's End Poverty campaign, particularly around the Dreams and Realities exhibition, and worked tirelessly, drove the paintings around the country, liaised and spoke to many people. And we've got a lovely, Pete wasn't able to join us tonight, but he's recorded a video to share some of his highlights of the past 18 months.
Yeah, I'm Pete, and I've been part of the Let's End Poverty movement through work with Church Action on Poverty. I've got so many highlights from my over a year being part of the movement. But for me, the main one would be the Dreams and Realities exhibition that I helped Stephen Martin and Yo Tozaloft make happen. Going to cities across the country, showing paintings, hearing people's stories and sharing Stephen's was such a brilliant experience. Some of my highlights included a day trip me and Stephen took up to Newcastle to put the paintings up in Newcastle Library. Also, our exhibition in Halifax with Mums on a Mission at Halifax Unity was really brilliant. Seeing the people there engage with the paintings to the extent where Stephen painted all of them and it's turned into a follow-up exhibition was so lovely. And finally, our trip all the way down to Portsmouth, which, although long, was worth it because we had MPs and council leaders show up, and I also managed to get fish and chips on the beach. It's been so brilliant being part of the movement. And I also wanted to mention Artists for Change is another project that's been a highlight. And I'm sorry I can't be there tonight.
We would want to pass on our thanks to Pete for his tireless work in making that all happen. You mentioned at the end Artists for Change. Another aspect of our creative work was we had small amounts of funding. We want to thank Greenbelt actually for part of that. Greenbelt Festival made a donation towards Let's End Poverty for creative work. So we were able to fund a range of activities over the year. And that again was amazing how the different groups who put in for requests for funding and were able to use that money have done incredible things. It kicked off with one of my highlights of the year was an event, Band on the Wall in Manchester, an iconic music venue. And we hosted a music evening there. And I got to be a promoter of a music event at Band on the Wall. So that was unexpected. But I think Hannah's got a few pictures to share of some of the creativity. And then we'll have a video from Suzanne Kingston and Suzanne Huddersfield and Sharon Illicit Theatre Company. 3 creative projects that have been funded in Huddersfield and Kingston and the Illicit Theatre Company.
In the Huddersfield circuit, the Craftism Group has been working hard with others to take a stand against the injustice of poverty. Earlier in the year, we created a giant web of poverty, a physical representation of the issues faced by those people in poverty. This was taken along to local hustings during the general election, a call and a challenge to the would-be MPs. More recently, we're really proud to have completed our Let's End Poverty Circuit banner. Individuals, churches and those from the Huddersfield Mission Art Group were all invited to create a panel to reflect either their own personal stories or thoughts and reflections on the issues of poverty. It's created an inspiring and evocative art piece which is going to form the centre of a Poverty Matters event which we're going to be holding along with the Huddersfield Mission in September.
At Kingston Pantry, we used our grant to start a creative pathway for our members. Those who can't afford to put money into a hobby could come down for an evening, learn a new skill and do something that they really love. We also did over 3 weeks in artwork where we explored the impact of poverty in our lives. We talked about our hopes and dreams for the future and finished it off with a self-portrait. Over Christmas, we designed Christmas cards. We printed them and were able to sell them all, and all the designers could share in the profit. Feedback we got from our members were, I feel these workshops have truly helped me to express myself through art and given me a space to connect with others. It made me feel like I have a clearer voice and presence. It can be lonely and isolating when you are low on money. Art classes gave me something to look forward to and be more than just a mum for an evening. I like the lovely atmosphere, to learn proper art techniques and the sense of pride I felt. I'm so proud of our Christmas cards. I can't believe I've designed a card that will be sold. I've always liked the idea of painting, but lacked confidence and opportunity. When I heard about the art classes, it was like I'd won a prize. I didn't know that I could paint. Art gave me a voice. When lost for words, you can say a lot through art. Now all these lovely artworks are displayed on the wall right outside our pantry, and we see how clients of the coffee shop paused and looked at the beautiful works that we have created.
Hi, I'm Sharon Spice, and I want to give a big thank you to Let's End Poverty. Thank you for all your help. Thank you for enabling me to be able to put my play on with the great donation you was able to afford to give me. Thank you for enabling me to be connected to other organisations, and just thank you for your support and guidance in terms of us all trying to end poverty. I will be sending over some information regarding the dates when my play is on, called The Perils of Universal Credit, and I'll also be sending over a few episodes of my film version of the same name play. So thanks again, guys. Well done. Thank you.
Should have said that as well as Greenbelt Festival, the grants we were able to make to a number of local pantries came from the cooperative, who have been really supportive of all this work. And Sharon's production, The Perils of Universal Credit, is going to be performed in September in London at the Etc. Theatre. So you've got a little while to work out where in London the Etc. Theatre is. There's a link I put in the chat so you can find out more there. So the work continues.
Brilliant. Thank you, Neil. We are moving into the final section of our evening, and we wanted to make sure that as we did that, we took time to think about where we're going from here. Whilst Let's End Poverty is finishing, many of us are committed to being activists around the work to end poverty in lots of different spaces. So we wanted to have a conversation about the opportunities and maybe some of the challenges that are coming our way to make sure to make a difference around poverty. So I'm going to bring in a couple of our contributors. I'm going to bring in Joe. It's good to see you, Joe. And we have Paul and Tyra joining us as well. We'll just give them a moment to appear on our screens. Hi, Paul. Good to have you. Fab. Lovely to see you, Tyra, as well. So, guys, I would love to invite you to help us think about what some of those opportunities and challenges coming our way are to tackle poverty. Joe, can we start with you?
Yeah, of course. And thanks for the scene. I've loved it. I've loved sitting here and watching all of this stuff. And there's so much I didn't know about as well. So thank you. Yeah, so opportunity. Well, the next month's massive, really, in the child poverty strategy, and I wanted to highlight that. I think it's been, it's been really hopeful in one sense. The government, in their own words, have started talking about child poverty. That's hopeful in its own right, actually. But been talking about an ambitious child poverty strategy to reduce child poverty, and that's their words. And when we are pushing them, and I was going to say that Gareth's absolutely right. They know what policies will make a massive difference. That's very, very clear, and they've been told by many people, those with lived experience, those in the policy sector. And I think, they have to reduce that number, and I'm really hopeful about that, because we are saying they have to do that, but because it's their words, I'm more hopeful around that. I also think that we've got lots to do, and we've got to keep on reminding them and take absolutely every single chance to remind them of what they need to do. I think someone's already said this evening, it might have been Baroness Lister in her video, that actually we've seen the Secretaries of State, I believe their passion to reduce child poverty, but we do need to see the Prime Minister and the Chancellor absolutely step up, and we need to hear from them and what they really think about this, because we're not hearing enough on that at all. And while we've got the time, we just need to take the opportunities, and I want us to do, I'd love to see us do more than write letters and emails and everything like that, and have more power. What I've been really hopeful about with the child poverty strategy as well is I kind of chair what's called the End Child Poverty Coalition, and I mean it's over 135 organisations within that. And for us all to be completely behind what we called our 8 tests around this child poverty strategy, I won't go through all of those, but we've got all the organisations behind it. And I've said to the Child Poverty Unit, you might think that's tough, but actually it was pretty easy. We're really clear what needs to happen, and you're really clear. Let's make it happen. But you've got to spend some money.
Thanks so much, Jo. I think there's, yeah, like you say, a real mixture of opportunity and challenge in that, and hopefully we won't have to wait too long to find out what we're working with. Tyra, can I come to you next? Tell us a little bit about what you see as the opportunities and challenges.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think for me, one of the biggest opportunities, I think it's been sort of echoed all out throughout today, really, is around like that local collaboration and bringing people from all different backgrounds and from people lived experience and professionals together with each other, and actually harnessing what forums are already out there. I think like I know there's partners in the room from the likes of like the Poverty Truth Network who are doing some incredible stuff, amplifying local voices. Also Trussell as well, and Joseph Rowntree Foundation around their Guarantee Our Essentials campaign. So I think there's some real opportunity there in actually being able to collaborate with partners, even though we're at the celebrating the end of Let's End Poverty and the great work that's been happening, actually where we can channel some of our energy in existing forums and opportunities there. And I think just on a practical one, in my professional sort of capacity that I've been involved in different conversations lately. I think, I don't know when exactly it come out, but obviously there's a lot of talk at the moment about the devolution white paper. I think it come out in, was it December, I'm going to say last year possibly, and already I'm starting to see quite a few knock-on effects locally, particularly for me, and I think on a national level as well, about how it can be more place-based and a lot more like community focused and community led, and how actually communities together with public sector partners like your health and wellbeing boards, your ICBs and different things like that, and councils are like working more collaboratively, and they've actually started asking the question, especially in the spaces and forums that I've been in, about actually how they can come up with better solutions and how we can think more differently, especially in a time at the moment where it is uncertain. And obviously there is a lot of funding that's being cut, and like obviously a knock-on effect as well, I suppose, with like the cost of living and sort of everything, where there is challenges, particularly with kind of everybody involved, like people that like from a lived experience point of view that are struggling, but also like community sort of organisations and stuff that are struggling to kind of stay afloat, and sort of around capacity and stuff like that. And even like our public sector partners as well, like the funding just keeps, and resources and different things like that, and capacity wise just keep sort of kind of getting more and more, well, less really. So I think it's, even though it's a challenge in that sense, it's opened up the conversation, I think, a lot more on like what can we do differently. And I think for me that's another opportunity as well of like actually people want to do things different, and actually we can do that together. So I think there's some of the opportunities, I'd say, anyway.
Thank you, Tyra. I'm really struck by both what you've shared there and what Joe shared about actually a recognition that people are just getting stuck in with making this stuff happen, whether that's in partnerships nationally or locally. Actually, the invitation there is for government to get stuck in as well and to join in with that work. Paul, can I come to you? What opportunities and challenges are you seeing?
I think the big opportunity I see is actually what was modelled within Let's End Poverty, which is that this is actually the last day of a role I've done for 18 years. I moved to another one in a couple of weeks' time. And when I started, policy was done by sort of educated professional people who knew exactly what the right thing was, and people with lived experience of poverty were data points on their graphs, and there were objects to be studied rather than people to be talk to and understand and build relationships with. And what I see now throughout the charity sector, and I see it even in parts of government, is an understanding that those relationships that are important, and an understanding that if you are going to create good policy, you have to invite people in, and you have to invite them to, you have to let their experience shine a light on what it is you're trying to do, and that it's not a competition, but a partnership if it's done well. And that's something that Let's End Poverty did really well. But I think it's something that, you know, I've worked with Trussell for a long time, and you can see that going through the organization, and you can see it going through other organizations. And that's not going to change. I can't tell you what policy that will change tomorrow. I can't tell you what dot in a line of text in a law it'll change. But I think in 50 years' time, if that principle that people need to be, those relationships are important, remains, we will have transformed things. We will have been part of a transformation, and that, you know, that feels hopeful, that feels important.
Thank you to all three of you, and thank you for the different ways you've played a part in Let's End Poverty over the last few years. You've all been involved in a whole variety of different ways, actually, often right from the start, actually, for each of you. So it's been great to work alongside you and to get to know you. And I'm really grateful that you are people who will continue to be in this space and working around poverty. So thank you. We're going to hear one last set of video messages from some of our movement builders. About what they would like to celebrate and the things, particularly the ripple effects from Let's End Poverty where they are. So we'll bring that onto the screen now.
One of the significant ripple effects for us in the Methodist Church is that we've changed our finance policy, and in the light of working with people with lived experience, we've been able to see some of our processes with new eyes and realize that they are creating a barrier. So we've now changed the finance policy so that we no longer pay volunteers expenses in arrears, but we're committed to paying money upfront to enable people to participate fully in any of the events that we put on at the Methodist Church.
One of the special things of 2024 was having conversations with people who'd been involved in Let's End Poverty. They were hopeful because they'd shared their wisdom and their stories. They connected with one another and they'd sought meaningful change. They were also aware it was a struggle at points as well. Let's keep sharing that struggle as we hold the hope that the UK might be a place free from poverty.
So what's special about Let's End Poverty? Well, so many things, but I've especially appreciated taking part in the online rallies, especially the pre-election one last year. I think in these difficult times where poverty and hardship levels just keep rising in this country, it's so easy to feel hopeless and despondent. And these rallies have brought a real sense of solidarity, hope and momentum.
Hi everybody, Raymond Freely here from Caritas Social Action Network. What difference has Let's End Poverty made to us? Well, it's given us a deeper understanding of the structural causes of poverty. It's helped us to understand more about movement building and how to get messages across in the noise of today's political and social environment. But above all, it's reminded us of the power of solidarity, of working together to create change. So let's work together to end the scandal of poverty in our country.
Thank you to everyone who recorded messages or shared their messages this evening. It has been wonderful to hear a whole range of people who've been involved with the movement.
While we are kind of marking and celebrating the end of this phase of the life of Let's End Poverty, there is an ongoing conversation amongst some of the people and organisations involved about what might come next. So please watch this space. Who knows what's going to happen next? It won't be as it's been over the past 18 months, so we know that. But I think you can get a sense from tonight that those conversations, relationships that we've started are not going to end here. And some of us are making it part of our mission to make sure that's not going to happen. We haven't got time for you to share in the whole space what inspired you. That is for you to take away and put on a post-it note and stick on your wall, so when things are getting tough, you can think back to what's been achieved. And so much has been achieved. And one of the reasons so much has been achieved, and I'm going to embarrass her now, there've been amazing people involved, but we all have Hannah to thank so much for the amazing work she's done in holding it all together, herding cats at times, and making it possible to involve so many people in so many different ways on a shoestring of a campaign. And lots of people have credit for that. But Hannah, absolutely, you've been amazing, and we can't finish off without thanking you for everything you've done and everything you're going to do, because I'm sure you'll be inspired like us for the future. So really interested what comes next for you, as well as for everybody else. So thank you, Hannah.
Thank you. I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that wasn't on the plan that I'd written. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful. But what was on the plan was to finish off and to say thank you to you all, and for everyone who's been part of Let's End Poverty. We've always said that a movement is shaped by its members. It will be shaped and characterised by who you are and the action that you take. And that's certainly been the case with Let's End Poverty. So to finish us off as we close out of this room, we wanted to finish with something we did at one of our action gatherings a little while ago, which is a virtual round of applause. So we're going to hopefully all come up onto the screen now. I'll make sure we can, hopefully if you've got everyone on gallery view, if you would like to either unmute yourself and join in with our round of applause by clapping, or you'd like to use the reaction buttons on the screen. We just want to say thank you to one another, to yourselves for the way that you've been involved, and to celebrate where we'll all go from here. So thank you everyone for being here. Let's join in with that now. Fab. Thank you, everyone. I hope you take that energy into whatever is in the rest of your evening and the rest of your activism. So thank you for being here with us.